I'm Stephanie Mayers, 34, and I built a steady life from the ground up, never flashy but dependable. For years, I poured time, money, and energy into my family, always the one who showed up, fixed things, and never asked for credit. But when they took my $15,000 for my brother's wedding, and then uninvited me 3 days before, I made a decision that changed everything. Have you ever been pushed aside by people you thought would always have your back? If you have, share your story in the comments, because you're not the only one. Before we dive into what really happened, drop where you're watching from in the chat. And if you've ever had to draw a line after being taken for granted, give this video a like and subscribe for more real stories about choosing self-respect over silence. What happened next, you won't believe. When people hear what happened, they usually ask why I paid in the first place. Why didn't you set limits? Why didn't you make them sign anything? I understand the questions. I probably would have asked them too if this story happened to someone else. But when it's your own family, the line between generosity and obligation blurs, and in my family, that line was invisible. I grew up in a house where family first wasn't just a saying, it was a rule. My parents said it so often, it may as well have been carved into the kitchen wall. When someone needed something, you showed up, no matter what. My dad worked double shifts so my uncle could get a down payment for his barbershop. My mom gave rides to every cousin whose car broke down, even if it meant missing her own doctor's appointments. And we weren't rich, we just stretched. I'm the middle child, 2 brothers, one older, one younger. I was the bridge, the fixer, the one who knew how to smooth things over when my brothers fought or my mom got overwhelmed. I wasn't Bobbied like the youngest, and I didn't get the responsibility of the eldest. I just helped, quietly, consistently. It was what I knew how to do. My younger brother Alex and I were close growing up. He was the loud, impulsive one. I was the quiet planner. He broke rules, I found ways to fix the mess. We had a kind of unspoken pact. He'd make chaos. I'd bring calm, that's just how we worked. As adults, things got more complicated. He didn't finish college, bounced around jobs, but always landed on his feet. He had this charm, people wanted to believe in him. He dated a lot, nothing stuck until Laura. She was polished, opinionated, very into appearances. When he introduced us, I smiled and asked polite questions. She answered everything like an interview. She worked in PR. It made sense. They got engaged after a year. It felt fast, but no one said anything. My parents were thrilled. Laura came from a wealthier family, which impressed them more than they admitted. There was this energy shift once the engagement was announced. Suddenly, everything revolved around the wedding. Calls from my mom turned into planning sessions. Group chats were created. Expectations started forming without anyone saying them out loud. It started small. My mom asked if I could look into venues. I said sure. Then it became put down the deposit, we'll pay you back. I said okay, I assumed they would. They didn't. Then came the catering. They found this place Laura loved, way out of budget. I suggested something more affordable. My dad said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. And that was the end of it. I covered half. At some point, it stopped being a question of whether I could contribute. It became a given. When my aunt from New Jersey couldn't afford to fly in, my mom said, "You've got points, right?" I booked her ticket. Then 2 more. Then handled all the hotel blocks because no one else knew how. I remember sitting at my desk one night, spreadsheet open, tracking payments. It totaled out to just under $15,000. I stared at the number. I wasn't struggling, but I wasn't flush either. I'm a senior account manager at a mid-sized marketing firm. I do okay. I live modestly, no kids, no spouse, just me. I'd saved a chunk during the pandemic and hadn't really touched it. That became the wedding fund. Not mine, theirs. Every time I brought up the money, the topic shifted. You're so organized. You're the only one we trust with this stuff. It's just easier if you handle it. And then the line that made me stop arguing, family helps family. It wasn't just the words, it was the way they were said, like a moral reminder, like I needed to be told what the right thing was. Every time I got close to drawing a boundary, someone would tug on that thread. Family helps family, don't be selfish, don't make this about you. I wish I could say I was totally blind to it, that I was being used and didn't know. But the truth is I knew, I just didn't want to deal with what would happen if I stopped. The guilt, the backlash, the silence, so I kept going. There was one moment, maybe 2 months before the wedding, when I mentioned the budget in a group chat. Just said we were getting close and maybe we could scale back on the pre-wedding events. Laura left the chat for a full day. When she came back, she sent one message. Let me know when things are less stressful. Alex called me that night. Can you just not rock the boat? He asked. She's sensitive about stuff like this. I told him I wasn't trying to cause trouble. He said, you're the only one making this hard. Then he changed the subject. I didn't bring up money again. I kept thinking maybe it'll feel worth it when I see them walk down the aisle. When everyone's there, celebrating, and I know I helped make it happen. Maybe then I'll feel included, appreciated. But something about the way they all talked made it clear I wasn't part of that image. Laura started referring to the wedding as our family event, but it never felt like she meant mine. My mom started saying, we're lucky Laura's so organized, as if she hadn't pushed half the work onto me. There were no thank yous after the hotel bookings. No one asked if I was okay balancing all the planning with my actual job. And when I hinted that I might want to bring a plus one, my mom said, let's keep it simple. You'll be busy helping anyway. I think that's when it clicked. They didn't see me as part of the celebration. They saw me as support staff, a vendor, reliable, invisible, expected. Still, I told myself I could get through it, just a few more weeks. Then it would be done. I could breathe, pull back, maybe even start saying no. That was the plan, anyway, until 3 days before the wedding when everything shifted. It started with the group chats. At first, they were functional, logistics, deadlines, RSVP updates, but then Laura began using them as a way to direct me. Can you confirm the florist? Did you get the shuttle company to extend by an hour? Venue needs final guest list. Can you update the spreadsheet? No greetings. No thank yous, just tasks. I told myself it didn't matter. I was good at this kind of thing. Details, planning, managing timelines. I could handle the extra work. But it was the tone that got to me. Everyone else in the chat was treated like a guest. I was treated like staff. The week we were finalizing the seating chart, Laura shared a PDF mock-up. I scanned through it. My name was buried in the back corner, 2 tables from the DJ booth. The main family table, front and center, was filled with her parents, her siblings, their partners, and Alex. My mom and dad were at the next table. I wasn't at either. I asked my mom about it. She hesitated. Then she said, well, you'll probably be moving around anyway. You're helping coordinate, right? I didn't respond. A few days later, we were at my parents' house stuffing welcome bags. Laura stood in the kitchen delegating. She wanted the snacks facing label out, water bottles with ribbons, the itinerary tucked neatly behind the granola bar. I followed her lead. At some point, I reached for a Sharpie to label the bags by hotel, and Laura said, without looking up, just, try not to make it look messy, okay? My mom laughed. Laura has more of an eye for elegance. I froze for half a second, then kept writing. It wasn't the first time my mom had said something like that, but it landed differently now. Like a confirmation of something I hadn't wanted to admit. My aunt was there too, folding tissue paper. She looked over and said, when your time comes, you'll get to be the star. For now, background roles suit you. Everyone laughed, I didn't. It would have been easy to walk out, but I didn't want to give them that, so I smiled and kept working. Later that night, I told myself they didn't mean it, that it was just wedding stress. But the excuses were getting harder to believe. Alex had always had this ability to tune out anything uncomfortable. Growing up, it was a joke. Alex doesn't do drama. But now, it felt like avoidance. I called him after the seating chart came out, asked if we could talk through it. He said, why does it matter? You'll be busy, right? I told him it felt strange not to be seated with family. He paused. Then, Laura worked really hard on this, okay? Let's just not make it a thing. I said fine, I hung up. That weekend, I helped my mom with her dress fitting. She'd found something simple and classic, but Laura had ideas. Let's add a belt. It needs more shape, she said, tugging at the waist. My mom nodded. She's got such a modern eye, I never would have thought of that. I was standing right there. No one asked my opinion. It was like I'd become wallpaper, useful when needed, invisible otherwise. The rehearsal dinner planning was another moment. I'd booked the venue, pre-ordered the menu, even called in a favor to waive the corkage fee. When we went to confirm the headcount, Laura told the restaurant I was just handling logistics. Not sister of the groom, not part of the family, just logistics. The waitress looked confused and said, "Oh, are you their planner?" I smiled and said, "Something like that." That night, I got home and stared at the spreadsheet again. 47 line items. Every one of them managed by me, every one of them taken for granted. There was one brief moment I thought things might shift. My dad pulled me aside after dinner. He said, "We appreciate you, you know." I nodded, waiting. He added, "Just try not to let your feelings get in the way of the big picture. This is about Alex and Laura." That was the closest anyone came to acknowledging how I'd been treated. Even then, it felt like a warning, not support. At work, I started staying late, not because I had extra tasks, but because it felt better than being on call for more wedding assignments. My manager noticed. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was just helping with a family event. She said, "Well, you're handling it like a professional, but don't forget, helping doesn't mean erasing yourself." That stuck with me, but I didn't know what to do with it yet. I kept going, RSVP follow-ups, menu confirmations, airport pickups, all under the radar. If I didn't do it, no one would, and I wasn't ready to see what happened if I stepped back. Laura's bridal shower was the next turning point. It was held at her friend's house, very curated, very branded, custom cookies, a booth, tiny champagne bottles with her name on them. I offered to help set up, but her friends waved me off. "We've got it," one of them said. "This is her inner circle." I wasn't asked to speak, not even introduced. When it ended, I helped carry gifts to the car. Laura didn't look at me once. I went home that night and deleted the spreadsheet from my desktop. I didn't delete the file, just removed the shortcut. It was a small act, but it felt like something. The final week before the wedding, the air shifted. Everyone was buzzing, frantic. Calls, texts, errands. I was in the loop, but never really part of the loop. My name was dropped in conversations like a vendor S. Ask her to confirm the buses. She should know what time the chairs arrive. The tipping point came when my cousin messaged me asking what time family photos would be. I didn't know. I wasn't told. I checked the planning doc. I wasn't on the list for portraits. I texted Alex, "Am I supposed to be in the family photo block?" No response. Then 10 minutes later, "We're keeping it streamlined, just immediate family." I stared at the message, typed deleted, then typed again, "Got it." He didn't reply. I sat there, phone in hand, and finally admitted what I'd been resisting for months. I wasn't part of this celebration. I was a resource. And now that everything was almost done, I could feel them slowly edging me out. I didn't cry, I didn't rant. I just put the phone down and walked into the kitchen. There was a silence in me I hadn't felt before. Not numbness, just clarity. I was done pretending this was normal. What I didn't know then was how close the real betrayal was, and how quiet the moment would be when it came. 3 days before the wedding, I was at my desk at work, finishing up a quarterly report. Nothing dramatic, just another Tuesday. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, text from my mom. It wasn't unusual. I assumed it was another task. Another last-minute thing they'd forgotten and wanted me to fix. It was short, one sentence. "Laura's uncomfortable. We've decided you shouldn't come. Please respect that. Don't make this about you." I stared at it, blinked, looked again. No hi, no explanation, no punctuation beyond the period, no offer to talk, just a final decision presented as fact. At first, I thought maybe there was more. Maybe a second message was coming, one that clarified things or softened the tone, something, but it never came. I put my phone down, picked it up again, read the text a third time. Then I just sat there. I didn't cry, I didn't throw anything, I didn't call anyone. I just sat, letting the silence fill the room. It wasn't like I didn't see it coming. The weeks leading up had been cold, clipped, transactional, but even then I'd assumed I'd be there. Not because I wanted to be in the spotlight, not because I needed attention, but because I was his sister, because I was family, because I'd paid for half of it. I tried to replay the logic in my head. Laura was uncomfortable. With what exactly? My presence, my role, the fact that I still existed. Then the second line landed, "Don't make this about you." That one hit differently, like a warning or a threat, as if simply reacting would be a form of selfishness, as if being hurt would prove I didn't deserve to be there in the first place. It was surreal. I'd spent months doing everything they asked without being asked, booking vendors, writing checks, fixing mistakes quietly so they wouldn't get blamed, all of it done in the name of being helpful, of keeping the peace. And now I was being told to stay home. I opened the group chat to see if anything had changed. They were still talking, still confirming rehearsal plans, still tagging me in logistics. I watched the messages roll in. They were still using me to organize the wedding I was no longer invited to. That was the moment something shifted. I didn't respond to my mom's message. I didn't send a follow-up. I didn't ask for clarity. I just put my phone on silent, closed my laptop, and sat very still. And then I smiled. Not because I was okay, not because I had a plan, but because something in me finally stopped hoping. There's a kind of peace that comes with that, when you realize the people you've been trying to please don't see you, that they never really did. I got up and walked into the kitchen, made tea, let the water boil slowly. Everything felt unusually quiet, like the noise had been turned down in the world. I sat at the table and wrote down everything I'd paid for, just to see it all in one place. Venue deposit, $4,000. Catering advance, $3,500. Hotel bookings, $2,200. Transportation, $1,600. Decor, rentals, photography, shuttle service, tips, favors. $14,893, not counting the little things I stopped tracking. I hadn't asked for a dime back. I hadn't made a fuss. I'd absorbed every cost, every inconvenience, every comment. And now I was being erased. Around 9 that night, Alex called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Hey, I know Mom texted. Look, it's not personal, okay? Laura's really stressed and it just seemed easier. We didn't want tension at the wedding. You know how she gets. I hope you can just let it go. We'll talk after. Love you." He sounded tired, detached, like he was trying to get through an uncomfortable work call. I didn't listen to the rest, just hit delete. There wasn't going to be a conversation after. The next morning, my dad called too. He sounded strained, said he hoped I'd understand, that they weren't taking sides, that they just didn't want to disrupt the mood. Then he said, "It's only one day." I almost laughed. Only one day. I didn't say anything, just let the silence carry. He eventually hung up. Later that afternoon, I got a text from my aunt. "Just heard what happened. Hope you're okay. Laura's under a lot of pressure." I didn't reply to that either. I went for a walk, no music, just the sound of my footsteps. I passed a park where a couple was getting engagement photos taken. They were laughing. The photographer kept telling them to lean in closer. I stood across the street and watched for a few minutes. Then I turned around and kept walking. That night, I ordered takeout, Thai food, watched a documentary I barely paid attention to. The phone stayed silent. No one followed up. No one checked in. As far as they were concerned, the issue was handled. I was off the guest list. Problem solved. But something had started forming in me. Not revenge, not yet, but something colder, sharper. I didn't want an apology. I didn't want a seat at the table. What I wanted was to be done pretending. I didn't sleep much that night. My brain kept playing back every moment that led to this. Every ask, every excuse. Every time I'd ignored the warning signs because I thought if I kept giving, they'd eventually see me. They didn't. And now, finally, I could stop giving. I didn't know yet what I was going to do, but I knew I wouldn't be quiet much longer. I didn't plan to tell anyone, at least not right away. I thought maybe I could just process it alone, ride out the humiliation quietly, move on, pretend it didn't matter as much as it did. But I couldn't sit with it. Not that kind of betrayal. Not when I still had the seating chart saved on my desktop. Not when my name was still on every contract, every invoice, every reservation. So I called Janine. She's been my best friend since college. No drama, no judgment, just someone who listens without turning everything into a story about herself. She came over that night, no questions asked, with a bottle of wine and a look that said, "Start from the beginning." I read her the text from my mom, just handed her my phone and let her read it for herself. She sat there, silent, lips pressed together. Then she said, "They're not just inconsiderate, they're cruel." I didn't say anything at first. I just nodded. The word landed hard but clean, like someone had finally named what I'd been dancing around. I pulled out my laptop and opened the spreadsheet, showed her the breakdown, the venue, the caterer, the hotel blocks, the shuttle service, the florist deposit, the decor rentals, the makeup artist, the shuttle service for the extended family, every one of them booked in my name, every one of them confirmed with my card. Janine leaned over and scrolled through it slowly. "They let you do all this," she said, "then cut you out like you were never part of it." I exhaled. They didn't just let me, they expected it. She looked at me. "So what are you going to do?" I shook my head. "Nothing dramatic." She raised an eyebrow. "That's not what I asked." I didn't answer right away, because even then, part of me still wanted to keep it clean, dignified. I didn't want to be the woman who retaliates out of spite. I wanted to believe I could just walk away, but another part of me, quieter, sharper, was already moving. That part was making lists. I didn't sleep much that night either. I stayed up rereading emails, vendor confirmations, payment receipts. My inbox was a digital archive of every moment I'd said yes when I should have said no. I saw my name on every line. I thought about how many times I'd told myself it was temporary, that the thank yous would come later, that the moment they saw how much I gave, they'd value me differently. They didn't, and they never would. Because I was never supposed to be seen, I was supposed to fill the gaps quietly, solve the problems, absorb the inconvenience, make it easier for everyone else. That was my role, the fallback girl, the fixer. I thought about the time I flew out early to help my cousin with her baby shower. How no one mentioned I was the one who made the cake or cleaned the rental space after everyone left. How my name didn't come up once in the photo captions. I thought about Christmas last year when I drove 3 hours through snow to bring extra chairs and folding tables. How my mom said, "You're such a trooper," like I was a loyal employee, not her daughter. And now this. A wedding I funded, a weekend I organized, a list of vendors who called me, not them, because I was the one they knew. And I'd been cut out of it with a single line of text. Janine texted the next morning, "You good?" I wrote back, "Not yet, but I will be." Then I started checking cancellation policies. It wasn't revenge, not really, not yet. It was boundaries. I called the photographer first, asked if we were still inside the cancellation window. She said yes, but just barely. I told her I wanted to cancel. She sounded surprised but said okay, sent me the cancellation form within the hour. Then I called the shuttle company, the catering manager, the linen rental service. I didn't explain. I just asked about refund terms, then canceled or paused each booking depending on what I could get back. Some of them had non-refundable deposits. Others gave me partial refunds. A few vendors asked if I wanted them to bill someone else instead. I said no, I'd already paid. This wasn't about the money anymore. I created a new spreadsheet, labeled it Final Actions. Every vendor removed, every service terminated, one by one, quietly, cleanly. That night, I sat on the couch and looked at the first spreadsheet again, the one with all the original bookings. I changed the color of every canceled item to gray. The screen went dull. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm, like a weight had finally shifted off my spine. No one called me that day. No one texted to follow up. I kept waiting for someone to notice, but they didn't. Or maybe they did, and they thought I'd back down. Maybe they assumed I'd just swallow the insult and keep working, because that's what I always did. They didn't know this was different. This wasn't about the wedding anymore. This was about the years I'd spent making myself useful instead of visible. The birthdays I organized, the holidays I smoothed over, the group vacations I planned, paid for, and photographed, always the one holding the camera instead of being in the frame. It was all part of the same pattern, and I was finally stepping out of it. Janine called around 9. "How's the non-dramatic plan going?" I told her what I'd done. She was quiet for a second, then said, "That's the most terrifyingly efficient thing I've ever heard." I laughed. "Is that a compliment?" "Absolutely." We didn't say much after that, just sat on the phone while she folded laundry and I stared out the window. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how they'd react when they realized the venue had no caterer. that the shuttle service had been canceled, that the photographer wasn't showing up. But I knew I wouldn't flinch. Not this time. And whatever came next, I wouldn't be part of it, not anymore. The first call I made was to the event manager at the venue. Her name was Celine. We'd spoken so many times over the last 3 months, I knew the tone of her voice by now. Always bright, always efficient. She answered on the second ring. "Hey there, how's everything going? Big weekend ahead, huh?" I said, "Actually, I need to cancel my bookings." She paused. "Just yours or the whole event?" "The whole event," I said. "At least everything that was under my name, which is most of it." Another pause, then more carefully, "Can I ask what happened?" I said, "Change of plans. I won't be attending. I won't be paying for it either." She asked if I was sure. I said yes. She told me she'd follow protocol, notify the vendors attached to her list, update the file, release the reserved spaces. Then she said, "You're entitled to a partial refund. It won't be much at this stage, but I'll process it tonight." I thanked her. She said, "I hope everything's okay." "Everything's clear," I said. "That's enough for now." After I hung up, I opened my email. I wrote 5 messages, 1 to the shuttle company, 1 to the DJ, 1 to the photographer, and 2 to the rentals and catering teams. I didn't explain. I kept it short. "Hi, I'm writing to cancel the following services under my account for the event scheduled on Saturday, July 15th. Please confirm receipt and note the account is closed. Do not process any further charges." I signed each one with my full name and cell number. By midnight, 4 of them had replied, all confirmations, 2 with partial refunds. I went to bed without setting an alarm. The next morning, I woke up to 4 unread texts and 2 missed calls, 1 from my mom, 1 from my aunt, 3 from unknown numbers. The first text said, "Hey, we heard the caterer backed out. Can you check what's going on?" The second, "The hotel is saying our group rate isn't active anymore. They're charging full price now." The third, "Did something happen with the shuttle? They said the Friday pickup is off." I didn't respond. I turned off read receipts and moved the thread to archive. At 9:42 a.m., Alex called. I didn't answer. A minute later, the voicemail came through. His voice was tight, rushed. "What the hell is going on? Mom said the photographer pulled out and no one can get in touch with the DJ. Can you please call me back? This isn't funny. If this is about that text, can we just talk, please?" He sounded more confused than angry, like he hadn't put the pieces together yet, like he still thought this could be fixed with a call. I didn't save the voicemail. Around noon, the venue manager texted to let me know she'd confirmed the cancellations with everyone under my account. She added a note. "Bride's family is trying to rebook directly. Not sure they'll find someone on such short notice." I wrote back, "Thanks for letting me know. I won't need further updates." That afternoon, I got one final message from my mom. It read, "We didn't think you'd take it this far. This is your brother's wedding. It's not about you." I stared at it for a while. Then I archived it too. I didn't go out that day. I stayed home, ordered groceries, watched an old movie I'd already seen 10 times. Every couple of hours, I'd get a buzz, someone trying to reach me. But by then, I had the notifications silenced. The panic was on their side now. Janine came over later. She brought food, set it on the counter, and poured 2 glasses of wine. She didn't ask what I'd done. She already knew. She just raised her glass and said, "How's quiet accountability taste?" I smiled, like it's been overdue. We ate on the balcony. Summer was still clinging to the air. Somewhere out there, someone was probably scrambling to find folding chairs or a backup DJ. I didn't care. It wasn't personal. That's what they'd told themselves. But pulling me from the guest list wasn't a neutral act. It was a decision, a line drawn, a statement. All I'd done was respond in kind. No screaming, no accusations, no scenes. Just one clear line in return. Let them scramble. Let them explain to Laura's family why the welcome dinner was reduced to pizza in a church basement. Let them learn how hard it is to find a makeup artist with 3 days' notice. Let them manage things for once. Around 8, Alex called again. This time, he didn't leave a voicemail. That night, I wrote down a list of everything I'd recovered, every vendor that refunded me, every charge reversed, every reservation freed up. I didn't need the money back. That wasn't the point. But tracking it made things feel complete, like closing tabs in my head. I shut the laptop and finally slept. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No new texts, no calls. They were busy now, caught in a storm I didn't start, but that I had stopped sheltering them from. For the first time in months, my phone wasn't vibrating with someone else's demands. It was just quiet. And that was the point. I didn't check my phone the morning of the wedding. I knew it would be full of noise, missed calls, panicked texts, last-ditch guilt trips. I'd already done what I needed to do. There was nothing left to manage, nothing I owed. I made coffee, ate breakfast without rushing, went for a walk in my neighborhood which felt unusually calm. The whole time, I kept thinking about how many hours I'd poured into this weekend. How many lists, how many favors, how many quiet, accommodating yesies, and how now all of that was gone, wiped clean with a few phone calls. When I got back home, I left my phone in the kitchen and settled on the couch with a book I'd been trying to finish for months. I didn't get far. I kept rereading the same paragraph, not because I was anxious, but because my mind was finally still. The kind of stillness that comes after a long storm. No more fixing, no more anticipating, just still. It wasn't until late afternoon that I heard from Janine. She sent a photo with no message. It was an outdoor space, not the original venue. A public park, it looked like. Folding chairs half filled, no decorations, no aisle runner. The people were standing, confused, squinting into the sun. Someone had placed a Bluetooth speaker on a chair. A hand was holding a phone next to it. No canopy, no florals, no staff. I didn't ask for context. I didn't need it. She sent a few more throughout the evening. A blurry shot of Laura and Alex standing near what looked like a portable arch. No bridal party in sight. A selfie from one of Laura's friends with the caption, Plan B vibes. And a short video, 15 seconds of someone fumbling with a playlist on their phone. The music cut in and out, then switched to a podcast before someone quickly turned it off. Laura hadn't posted anything all day. No story, no tagged photos, nothing. That silence was louder than anything they could have said. At one point, I opened Instagram out of habit and saw that my cousin had posted a picture from a diner, captioned, "When the reception turns into takeout." I didn't like it, didn't comment, just closed the app. That night, Janine came over with dessert and a bottle of wine. We didn't talk about the wedding. We didn't need to. We watched something stupid on TV and laughed too loud. At one point, she looked at me and said, "You seem lighter." I said, "I am." She nodded like she already knew that. The next morning, I checked my messages. One from my cousin, Amy. "We're not particularly close, but we've always been friendly." It said, "We're all talking about what they did to you. You deserved better." I didn't reply. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel like the extra set of hands or the reliable backup. I felt clear. Seen, maybe not by them, but by myself. It's strange how fast everything resets once you stop performing. I went back to work on Monday. No one there knew what had happened, and I didn't offer it. But my manager pulled me aside and said, "You seem rested. Whatever you did this weekend, do more of that." I smiled and said, "Yeah, I think I will." Over the next week, I started pulling away in other ways. I left the family group chat without warning, just exited. No goodbye. A few hours later, my mom texted, "Is this permanent?" I didn't answer. Alex tried once more, a short message, "We should talk when things cool down." But I didn't see anything left to talk about. I think that's what threw them the most, that I didn't fight, didn't ask to be let back in, didn't argue or defend myself, just left. And let them feel what life looked like without my quiet, unpaid labor holding everything together. Janine asked me, a few days later, if I missed them. I said, "I miss what I thought they were." She nodded, "That's fair." It took a while for the chatter to die down. Word got around. Family weddings always come with gossip, but for once, I wasn't the one smoothing things over. I wasn't cleaning up the mess or offering context. I let them wonder. The funny thing is, once I stepped out, I realized how little they knew about my life, how little they'd ever really asked. They knew I was dependable, knew I showed up, but they didn't know what I loved, who I dated, what I wanted next. They never asked. and I was done offering things unasked for. So I started redirecting that energy. I signed up for a course I'd been eyeing for over a year, something creative, completely unrelated to my job. I went to a weekend retreat Janine had been pushing me to try. I cleared out half my apartment, donated things I'd held onto out of obligation, let go of gifts from people who no longer showed up. Everything got quieter and better. It wasn't about cutting people off. It was about choosing where I put my energy and who earned it. That part took time. The wedding photos eventually surfaced. A few guests posted filtered images that tried to make things look put together, but there was no real joy in them, just strained smiles. Mismatched chairs, the kind of effort that doesn't photograph well. Laura finally posted one photo, a black and white close-up of her bouquet. No people, no context, just a caption that read, "Not everything goes according to plan, but love wins." I didn't react, didn't message, didn't care. Because she was right. Not everything had gone according to their plan. And I'd finally stopped letting them write mine. It was about a month after the wedding when Alex reached out again. This time, it wasn't a voicemail or a vague text. He sent a message that actually said something. "Can we meet for coffee? I want to clear the air." I read it twice, then once more. I didn't feel anything when I saw his name pop up. No sting, no tension, just a muted curiosity. It wasn't closure I wanted. I'd already gotten that. But I was willing to listen. Not for him, for me. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our neighborhoods. Neutral ground, not one of our usual places. It was quiet, mostly people on laptops. He was already sitting when I got there, a coffee in front of him, barely touched. I ordered my drink and sat down across from him. No hug, no small talk, just a nod. He looked tired, like someone who'd been holding his breath for too long. I didn't offer to make it easier. "I know I should have said something sooner," he started. "I just didn't know how." I didn't reply. He took that as permission to keep going. That week was chaos. Laura was freaking out, my mom didn't want to push back, everyone just kind of panicked. And I didn't handle it right. I should have called you, I should have stood up more. I listened, watching him closely. He wasn't defensive, but he wasn't exactly accountable either. His words were shaped to sound responsible without fully holding the weight. He went on, "Laura felt like you were, taking up too much space in the planning. Like everything was about you, and she didn't want to feel like a guest at her own wedding." I raised an eyebrow. "So instead of talking to me, you cut me out." He didn't argue, just looked down. "I didn't know she sent that message through Mom," he said. "I found out later. I should have said something then, but..." "You didn't," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, I didn't." We sat there for a while. He was waiting for me to jump in. To offer a bridge, I didn't. He tried again. "Look, I get that it was wrong. I'm not defending it. But we didn't know you were going to shut everything down." That part made me smile, small, controlled. "No, you thought I'd take the hit and still deliver the cake." He exhaled, like that landed harder than he expected. "I wasn't trying to punish anyone," I said. "I just stopped participating in something I was no longer invited to. There's a difference." He nodded again, slower this time. I kept my tone calm, detached. "This wasn't about money, Alex. Not really. It was about respect. About how easy it was for all of you to push me out when I became inconvenient." He looked like he wanted to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "Let me finish." He leaned back. "I didn't ask for a spotlight. I didn't want a speech or a plaque. I just wanted basic acknowledgement. For months, I gave my time, my energy, my savings, and in return, I got silence, and then exclusion, and the message that I should accept it quietly." I took a breath. "So that's done now. I'm not going back to that dynamic, ever." He nodded slowly. "Okay." I could tell he thought that was the end of the conversation. That I'd laid it out, he'd accepted it, and we could return to some version of normal. But I didn't offer that. When the silence stretched, he asked, "So where do we go from here?" I thought about it. "We don't go anywhere, we stay here." He looked confused. "I don't hate you," I said. "I'm not angry, I just don't trust you. And I don't feel the need to rebuild something that wasn't working." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't, maybe because he knew I wouldn't entertain it. I stood up, finished the last sip of my drink. I wish you well, I really do. But from now on, I'm done giving more than I get. He nodded, there was nothing else to say. We walked out separately. Since then, we've been polite. That's it, holiday group texts, occasional forwarded photos from my mom, the bare minimum. He hasn't brought up the conversation again, neither have I. And honestly, I don't miss what we were before. It was built on my silence, my effort, my ability to make things easier for everyone but myself. Now I don't make things easier, I make them honest. My mom still tries sometimes, little nudges. Maybe one day you and Alex will, but I stop her. Gently, firmly. I don't need them to change anymore. I just need space, and I have it now. And that's enough. It's been a year. The wedding photos faded off social media about a week after they went up. There weren't many to begin with. A few awkward group shots, no first dance, no posed portraits, nothing from the ceremony itself. Laura never posted more than that single bouquet photo. I never heard from her again. My relationship with my parents is stable in the sense that earthquakes eventually stop making noise, but the ground never feels quite solid after. We speak occasionally. Holidays, a birthday call here and there. It's formal, distant, like we're playing characters in a version of the family we used to pretend we were. They don't ask about my life anymore, not really. They ask surface-level questions. Weather, work, traffic, I keep it simple, I keep it clean, I don't offer anything they haven't earned. They've stopped asking me to help with things. I think that part took them longer to unlearn than it did for me. For years, I was the fixer. The one who always showed up, even when no one else would. The one who made things run smoothly without needing credit. I don't do that anymore. The last time my mom mentioned needing help organizing my uncle's anniversary party, I told her, I'm not available for that. She nodded, didn't push. I don't pay for anything anymore. No group gifts, no family contributions, no quiet reimbursements. If I get invited to something, I decide on my own terms whether to attend. I bring what I want. I leave when I'm ready. And if I'm not invited, I don't ask why. A few months after the wedding, I bought a condo, just outside the city. 2 bedrooms, lots of light, quiet neighbors. It felt like starting over, even though it was only 20 minutes from where I used to live. But the space was mine. Every piece of furniture, every lamp, every glass in the cabinet, I picked it. No hand-me-downs, no compromises, just mine. I started a side business too. Something small, built off a skill I'd always had but never claimed seriously. It grew faster than I expected. Turns out when you stop pouring yourself into other people's chaos, you find time to build something of your own. I also learned to say no without guilt. That part didn't happen overnight. At first, it felt like a muscle I hadn't used in years, unsteady, sore, unsure. But the more I used it, the easier it became. No, I can't help with that. No, I'm not available. No, I won't be covering that cost. Not cruel, just clear. Some people didn't like the change. A few cousins stopped reaching out altogether. One of them sent me a passive-aggressive message after I declined to join a group vacation. "You've changed," she wrote. And she was right, I had. A couple of coworkers, people I'd once confided in, started coming to me for advice. Quietly. They'd say things like, "How did you draw that line with your family?" Or, "How did you know it was time to stop trying?" I never gave them a formula. Just told them what worked for me. I started choosing clarity over comfort, and I stopped mistaking silence for peace. Once in a while, someone will ask if I regret pulling the plug on the wedding. Usually it's framed like a hypothetical. Do you ever wish you, just gone and avoided all the fallout? I tell them no. Not because I enjoy how things ended, not because it didn't cost me something, but because it finally forced a reckoning I'd spent years avoiding. I stopped explaining myself to people who never listened. I stopped negotiating for a seat at a table where I was only ever asked to serve, not sit. I did what no one in my family ever taught me to do. I picked myself. Quietly, without apology. And that was the beginning of everything. The truth is, I didn't burn the bridge, I just stopped walking across it. They made their choice, I made mine, and mine gave me peace. There's a photo on my fridge now, just me, standing outside my condo holding the keys. Janine took it the day I moved in. My smile is small, relaxed, real, not performative, not polite, just present. That photo reminds me what I gained. Not just a place to live, but a space where I don't have to prove I belong, where I don't have to earn my worth through service, where the door only opens to people who knock kindly. A year ago, I was the fallback girl, the one who always caught the pieces when they shattered. Now, I let people carry their own mess, and I walk lighter because of it. If you've ever had to walk away from people who only valued you when you were useful, I want to hear your story. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have canceled everything or tried to keep the peace? Let me know in the comments. Your voice matters here. And if this story hit close to home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your worth.